Welcome to the Seguin Outdoor Learning Center. My name is Michelle Darnell, and I'm here today with the GBRA stream trailer. This stream trailer was funded through a grant from TCEQ. Now, we need to talk about this stream trailer first. The stream trailer is like a model, and I need you to understand what a model is. A model is a representation of a larger area. So on our model today, we are going to represent a couple of rivers that are near to you. We're going to say this side is going to be the San Antonio River, and this side might be the Guadalupe River. So on the model, this is not actually the San Antonio River or the Guadalupe River because it's a model, it's a representation. So in real life, does a river have trees? Yeah, it does. Since this is the San Antonio River, would represent the town of San Antonio, which is actually where the headwaters of the San Antonio River are. And when I say the headwaters, the San Antonio and the Guadalupe River both have something in common, that they are rivers that come from springs. They are spring-fed rivers. So that means that the water comes from under the ground. When it comes out of the ground, it becomes a spring. But as long as the water is under the ground level, it is called groundwater. So the headwaters of the San Antonio River are in downtown San Antonio, and the headwaters of the Guadalupe River are in Kerr County. And Kerr County is up in the hill country. So you have to imagine that up in the hill country, this would be Kerr County up here. This is the Guadalupe River. You can follow the Guadalupe River down all the way to the coast, just like on our model. This river over here goes all the way to the coast. And right here is the San Antonio River. So San Antonio is actually kind of right around here. I don't have that on my map. But the San Antonio River is right here, and it comes into the Guadalupe River right before it goes into the San Antonio Bay. So just starting again with the Guadalupe River, up here it begins in Kerr County. It comes down and goes through Bernie, and there's Canyon Lake. Then the river keeps going through New Braunfels and Seguin and Gonzales and Cuero and then Victoria, all the way to the San Antonio Bay. Okay, so at the San Antonio Bay, that's what's going to be represented right down there at the bottom of our model today. So let's look at the parts of this model. So on the parts of the model, we have the San Antonio River, and I've made them look different on purpose. They don't usually look this different, but I made them look different to prove a point, to show you something, to make it more dramatic. So on the San Antonio River, what are some things that you see on the San Antonio River on my model that you don't see over here on the Guadalupe River? Okay, if you told me that you see vegetation, you're exactly right. So here we have the vegetation, and that vegetation is very important, and you're going to see why, because in a moment I get to turn the water on our water. On the model, we have water that comes through, and it's going to represent those two rivers. So let's go ahead and turn the water on, Miss Cindy. Okay, so it's best if I just do one river at a time, because it's hard for you to focus on it when I have them both going. So let's look at the San Antonio River first. Remember, I said that the San Antonio River is fed through a spring. Okay, so the water is coming up from the ground. Can you see what's happening? We've got some erosion going on. What is erosion? Erosion is when the particles are taken away from the bank of the river. And those particles are called sediments. They carry the sediments down the river. And then as it gets to the mouth of the San Antonio Bay, the water spreads out and the particles start slowing, the water slows down, and so the particles start settling out. As those particles settle out, they create, that is called deposition. And when deposition occurs, that creates a delta. A delta is a land formation that is created at the mouth of the rivers. So you can see some of these sediments, erosion has occurred because some of these sediments have been carried on down to the San Antonio River. Now let's turn on the Guadalupe River and see what happens. Remember, the Guadalupe River also starts from a spring. Spring come up from the groundwater. So as you are watching the Guadalupe River side, rivers meander. They go back and forth, whichever way is the easiest. This one, look at the sides here. It's starting to create significant erosion. And as that erosion occurs, it picks up those sediments and puts it into the water. Those sediments are then carried on down to the San Antonio Bay. What is it called when the water starts slowing down and those particles start settling out? What is that called? That's called deposition. An easy way to remember that is like if you make a deposit into your bank. So you have your piggy bank and you're dropping money in the bank. That is a deposit. So when all these little particles settle out, they are being deposited into a land formation down there at San Antonio Bay. Did all of the particles make it to the San Antonio Bay? No, they didn't. Not all of the particles made it. So now this riverbed, actually, it has particles in it that came from up here. What can we do to prevent some of that erosion occurring? Did you see as much erosion over here on the on the San Antonio Riverside as we have over here on the Guadalupe Riverside? You don't, because, and tell me why. It's because of this vegetation. So one of the ways to prevent erosion is to have more vegetation along the riverbed. So this farmer here who has his crops and his animals, the horses and cows, for him to prevent losing that soil, what could he do? Okay, he could plant some trees. Now, what I have here to represent trees is this little Christmas garland. But when you have the trees along the riverbed, look at these trees behind me. Is the only part of these trees what you see? It's not. You only see about half of the tree, because the other half of the tree is under the ground. And what is it doing to all that soil under the ground? It's holding it. So it's like the tree is holding the soil there. The tree is holding the soil to keep the tree standing up, but the advantage to the soil is it's holding the soil in place. So these trees that I'm going to put along this riverbed are going to hold this soil in place. Is what we want it to do. That's the goal. Because even though this farmer owns this property, he does not, if erosion occurs and the property is washed away, then he does not own that property anymore. The rivers and creeks and lakes in Texas are owned by the state of Texas. So if his soil washes away and goes down the river, he doesn't now own a part of the river. His landmass or his farm is getting smaller because it's being washed away. So if he can plant some trees to help prevent that, then that's going to be very helpful to him. I'm going to just clear this so we can see if that helped us out any at all. Is there anywhere else on this map that you think this model where we might put some trees? I think over here, right here on this side, it seems like every time the river turns, that farther side gets washed away. So if we were to plant some trees right here, that's going to keep the soil from being washed away also. Okay, all right, let's see what happens. So we're going to turn the Guadalupe River on again. Remember, the Guadalupe River begins up in Kerr County, which is 1,850 feet above sea level. So it's coming down the river pretty fast. Okay, can you see the difference? Do you see the particles that are being washed into the riverbed? Okay, we do have the particles being washed into the riverbed, but it's not as dramatic as it was without the vegetation. So the vegetation is very important to hold back the soil and prevent erosion. All right, so we've got the erosion. That's when the soil is being taken away and redistributed somewhere else. What were all the little particles in the water called? Those were called sediments. And then as the water goes down to the bay and gets at sea level and the water slows down, what is it called when those particles drop out of the water? It's like making a deposit into your bank account. It's making a deposit into San Antonio Bay. What is that called? That's called deposition. You're exactly right. And then the land formation that's formed. Can you see now we've got a land formation down there? That land formation is called a delta.